Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Monday Macro View. This is Osama Rizvi from Primary Vision Network, and a very happy new year to you once again. So, in the last episode, we discussed some of the points that will shape the year to come. And now, as we are in 2023, I would like to talk about a little bit of factors that would act as an orientation to the rest of the weeks to come and what we will be talking about. So, jumping right in, I always think it is very good to start from questions. You have to ask a lot and the right questions, and every question is right, of course. So the first question I believe that will continue to shape geo-economy and geostrategic situation of the world is, will we see another COVID wave? Because there is another COVID wave. We're going to talk about it, and how is this going to act out? Will this be a sort of black swan event for some people or not? Then, of course, the geopolitical conflict of Russia and Ukraine, and how this conflict is going to end. Because John Mearsheimer, in his recent article for Foreign Affairs, talk about this, that there has to be an end to it. It cannot go on forever, and the outcome will also decide the payoff. What will be the payoff if we talk about in game theory terms? So, how is all this going to be shaped? How is this going to shape the future of the world? Then global monetary tightening, of course, when we talk about one of the most important factors in 2023, as we discussed before, it's the global monetary tightening policy, when and if there is going to be a pivot anytime soon, especially that of the Fed. And of course, all of these events affect, I continue to highlight this, the developing world in a disproportionate manner. And there is already a rising debt crisis there, humanitarian crisis there, food prices is rising, food security is being threatened. How is this going to shape out in 2023? Then there are shifting sands in the international relations, and China, US, Europe, all of the equations are changing. And finally, what will happen to the oil prices? I'll start with the last one, oil prices. So you can see on your screen there are 2 points. On the right is an article from the Forbes, which is very bullish and calls for a bull market. And on the left side is Reuters economic survey. And both are on the opposite end of the spectrum. So as the market sentiment tracker was shaped, I believe the bullish and bearish factors will continue to be there. This will be the seesaw. However, the bullish factor might shift its position from geopolitical events to just a rebound in economic activity, rebound in Chinese economic activity, and rather a slowdown in rise of inflation and such things like that. But overall, the orientation would remain the same. Daniel Yergin, a very famous oil market historian, oil writer on energy markets and energy history, he sees oil at 120, whereas a group of 30 economists surveyed by Reuters do not. I personally believe it will be difficult to see oil above 100, given many other factors. And one of them was, which I covered in the last show, where Chinese have already gathered a lot of inventories, and people do not see them picking up their purchase of crude oil for the next few months as quickly, even if they open up. Speaking of opening up the Chinese policy economy, we need to look at that 16 more countries have reinstated PCR tests for around the world, and there is an XBB.1, 0.5 version of COVID-19 as well. And I know that there is a vaccine in place. I know that we have somehow been resilient to the recent waves, but look at this chart. So when we divide the world into high-income and low-income countries, the number of people vaccinated is the difference between the discrepancy between them is huge. So 73% people are vaccinated in the developing or developed countries, advanced economies, whereas around less than 28%, less than 30% have been vaccinated in the low-income countries. And most of the demand, energy demand, new projects, everything is coming from from that part of the world which is not as developed. So the ports are in this area, the Eastern Hemisphere, the African continent. That can give a considerable blow to the global economic activity and international trade. Speaking of international trade and economic activity, developing countries continue to be in hot waters. There was a report by UNCTAD recently that says if we are to account for all the rise in interest rates, the developing world will have to pay around $1.1 trillion only in 2023 as part of debt servicing. I've continued to highlight how rising dollar, rising interest rates for the Fed present a challenge, a fiscal, existential, if you may, at times, challenge to the developing part of the world. And this is an example of it. Pakistan right now is on the verge of default. Our reserves are at 6 years lowest, and we have to pay around $1.3 billion by the 10th of January. And the reserves are, 4 to 5 billion. We are short $4 to $5 billion, and we just try to maneuver and navigate IMF and other lenders. And I don't know whether the amount will come in or not. So, and this is being mimicked everywhere. Ghana recently filed for bankruptcy, Sri Lanka, and other countries as well. Speaking of Africa, debt burden in Africa recently equal to the total health spending of the continent. It is an extraordinary amount, especially given the fact that Africa will be, in the coming years, decades, the hub of economic activity, given the rise in population and demand they're going to create. You can see on your screens that the humanitarian cost has risen to $51.5 billion, which is a 25% increase to the previous year. Many people have been added into poverty. We discussed this in the previous chart as well. This will continue to be a challenge everywhere. Last but not the least, there's shifting sands international relations. So President Xi starts his third term as fifth-year term. China's economic health is not as good as it used to be. This will continue to shape international relations. Chinese equation with European countries and European equation with Chinese countries, they tend to center around geopolitical conflicts and security issues. So China might be looking towards global south more instead of these countries. That is also going to reshape. There might be more alliances, more projects with Russia, Iran, Central Asian countries, Southeast Asian countries. And if we talk about Middle East, whether there are prospects of peace in the region, whether the Iranian deal, JCPOA, does it have a chance to revive? I do not think so, but many people agree that the chances aren't zero. So still there is hope. And above all, the most important thing is global energy system, from the flow of molecules to new buyers, new sellers, new contracts, new prices. Everything has been changing with the energy system. And I believe this will continue to be the shape. And you can see that by September, a third of rise in inflation, about 9%, in the developed world, was attributed to the changes in energy due to Russia-Ukrainian war. That just shows how important this is. So that's all from today. I hope you enjoyed the show. And moving forward, we will continue to work on specific markets and specific news. But this was just a bigger picture show. Wish you a very good week and see you all next Monday. Thank you so much.